Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Type V3 and swinging onto the scene is the friendly neighborhood wall-crawling webhead. This is the MAFEX Spider-Man, based on his film appearance in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. A toned physique and slender build outline the base of this figure's visuals, and it's more or less in line with the classic Spidey body. Like in the movie, despite wearing what's effectively spandex, muscle definition isn't so severe that it protrudes throughout the suit. It's an aesthetic decision I agree with. Surface sculpting is where Medicom really pulled it together for this figure. The blue areas have a realistic mesh-like texture to it, and the plastic itself has this almost metallic-like sheen. The red areas and webbing on the costume are even better. They strike the perfect balance between bold while not grabbing the bulk of the visual attention. It's the same story with the spider logos too. They pop without looking as if they were pasted on like an afterthought. Also, the detailed web shooters are a nice touch. Spider-Man's head sculpt looks fantastic, yet it's the eyes that put it over the edge. A pearlescent white plastic sits underneath a clear lens which gives the eyes their glowing depth. Combine that with the proportionally appropriate head sculpting, along with the beautiful webbing features already mentioned, and there's not much more I could have asked for. Of course, there is one strange distraction that caught my eye when examining this figure: the hip area. It just looks so disjointed from everything else. It's like someone carved out gaps in Spidey's crotch and then jammed the most obvious of ball joints in there. Definitely an area that needs to improve on for future releases. MAFEX Spidey measures just over 6 inches tall. The actual size is fine, although scaling perfectly with other toy lines may be tricky, especially since most Japanese action figures tend to be smaller than the 1/12th scale. For Articulation, Spider-Man has 2 ball joints, one in the base of the neck and one in the base of the head. Very, very great range in every direction you want, tilting, up, down, side to side, it all works. It's the same story with the 2 ball joints in the torso, because there's one here at the waist and one here in the mid-torso. You can basically roll that ball on both of them to get really awesome mobility in any direction. The shoulders themselves have a bar that runs through them, but they're kind of interesting. The one that's on the inside is a ball joint, and that's just your normal rotational ball joint. But the one in the shoulder has soft little detents in them, so whenever you move them, you can feel little clicks going up and down. And it's an interesting combination because it does keep the outer arm very stiff, but the joint inside the torso is actually really loose. If you notice, it just tends to fall like that, and it's kind of the same story with most of the arm joints. I mean, the bicep sole was nice and tight. The elbow, double jointed, it's okay, but there's a lot of weight here, and it does drag down that shoulder. The wrists are a ball hinge. And for my big problem with this toy is, despite having the bar here in the shoulder, you can't get this arm to come in front of his chest at all. Basically what I'm saying is that inside joint there is useless. It kind of just can just do that. That's it. You can't get him to come and bring his arm down across or anything. You can't get him to touch his hands. No, they're stuck. And that really annoys me. A lot more than it probably should, but this is Spider-Man, and that's annoying that that's the extent of that shoulder rotation there. The legs are about your standard fare. There is a ball joint at the hip. It can go outwards, forwards, back is pretty decent. You can pull down the leg here at the hip just to get some a little bit more increased mobility going upwards. You do have a thigh swivel. Double jointed knee, pretty good. Ball hinge at the ankle, so you have ankle rockers. There's a nice pivot. Rotation works. The only problem is, like with the arms, the joints here are a bit loose. And the real issue comes into standing. When you put them down, sometimes what'll happen is these ankle joints are really weak, and they don't quite support. If that's not the case, the knees will collapse because they're a bit weak. I find it really hard and frustrating to balance this guy properly, as you can probably tell. Like its visual presentation, Articulation is generally great except for one area, the shoulders. The limited range is only highlighted more by how good everything surrounding it is. Also, I think the joint tolerances could have definitely been stronger as well. Moving on to accessories, and Spidey's inclusions are minimal at best. In addition to his fists, there's 4 extra pairs of hands. You get open palms, splayed fingers, web shooting hands, and a special thumbs-up type gripping hand. The last pair was made specifically for his web effects. With these items, along with the included display stand, you can have Spider-Man swinging through the air. It's a simple and effective setup. The last accessory is a secondary pair of web effects. This time, you place these around the wrist joint to emulate Spidey actually shooting webs. It's neat, and a gimmick I do enjoy. Now, while that may be it for this toy's contents, do know that there is a deluxe version of this figure that has a huge set of extras. Everything from an unmasked head to a skateboard and even a magnetized wall is included there, should that interest you more. There's two ways to look at the MAFEX Amazing Spider-Man 2, and both yield opposite opinions. The first method is to compare Spidey with the previous MAFEX release, Batman. Straight and to the point, it's a noticeable step forward. Unlike The Dark Knight, Spider-Man holds together perfectly and doesn't even hint at the joints popping apart. Presentation has also been slightly improved, and the increased accessory count makes the value proposition even better. MAFEX basically fixed the most crucial faults with their previous release. On the other hand, there's a world of toy companies out there, and I think the MAFEX Amazing Spider-Man still comes up short in direct comparison with the market leaders. MAFEX are clearly aiming at Bandai's SH Figuarts style of figure, and while they've inched closer in offering a comparable product, they're not quite there yet. Developments in general playability and tightening up overall build quality are the major areas of focus. Nevertheless, the MAFEX Amazing Spider-Man 2 is a great figure. At the very least, it's one of the best Spidey toys currently out there on the market. As for the MAFEX toy line itself, well, with this release, Medicom have shown that they are willing to correct and improve their figure quality without hesitation. It's still a relatively young toy line, and if gains and advancements such as these are to be the expected norm with subsequent releases, then I'm sure Medicom's MAFEX line will be a strong contender in the 6-inch figure scene before too long. But that's all for me. Thanks for watching, and my mind is absolutely blank at the moment. I've got no punny quips today. So let's just leave it at that, and I'll see you at the next review.